It is worse than we thought. That's about everything you need to know from the IMF annual autumn meetings in Washington, D.C., when Chief Economist gave a comment about the global economy next year. Well, maybe not the economy itself, but the uncertainty that covers next 2-3 years. Lithuania has chosen its parliament for the next 4 years, but it seems that all eyes are on Georgia right now, which also voted for their parliament members, choosing between Russia's or European influence. Latvia's Minister of Finance submitted a budget to the parliament last week. Coalition says that it's the best possible version of these times. Opposition calls it an oversized ball, one unexpected extra need, and it's burst. Today in Median Report we are going to look at the global economy with the help of Chief Economist of Citadele Bank in Latvia, Mr. Karlis Purgailis, and deep dive in the current state of Baltic markets with the chairman of the board of Signet Bank, Mr. Idelsons. Also, we'll have a report about the hydrogen business from Estonia. So I wish you an interesting episode. The 2024 IMF annual meetings in Washington highlighted three main messages, focused on balancing immediate recovery with long-term stability. First, managing inflation and global growth. The IMF forecasted global growth at 3.2% for 2024 and also the next year, with inflation expected to decline steadily towards the target levels by 2025. However, the organization flagged concerns over medium-term growth, which is likely to hover around a modest 3%. Structural productivity enhancements are seen as crucial to sustain stronger long-term economic health. Second concern is about mitigating geopolitical and financial risks. Geopolitical tensions, including conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East, alongside growing economic protectionism, are adding downside risks. The IMF emphasized that policymakers should remain cautious of financial instability and work to fortify labor markets, particularly in advanced economies. And finally, IMF kept repeating about strengthening policy coordination. The Monetary Fund urged countries to harmonize monetary, fiscal and structural policies. They recommend that central banks continue to support regions with stable inflation, that fiscal policies focus on sustainable growth without adding to debt, and that structural reforms aim to enhance productivity and expand workforce participation, especially through labor supply reforms. To discuss the global economy perspectives, Median Report has invited Karlis Purgailis, the chief economist at Citadele Bank in Latvia, to tell us more about the short and mid-term perspectives of the global economy. Some of the risks that are mentioned are, of course, tariffs and trade wars that can erupt between the United States and China, lower migration. That is actually something that I think that our electorate does not really want to hear, but as I understand this, for the world growth is very necessary. And also global financial conditions are mentioned among those. Not really geopolitics, that is a surprise to me, but maybe if I may ask you, Karlis, what do you think of the challenges and maybe dangers for the world economic growth, and maybe leaning also towards a little bit European geography?
Yeah, I guess you're right that this geopolitical risk is a bit neglected in the report. Obviously, currently the conflicts that we see in Europe, war between Ukraine and Russia, and conflicts in the Middle East, they are quite local conflicts, and they are kind of not giving a huge effect on a global economy. However, if those conflicts kind of spread wider or kind of negatively evolve, that can be quite a huge implication on the global economy, in my view. In Europe, we as we live quite close to Ukraine, we feel the worries about the conflict. All three Baltic state governments are planning to spend much more on the defense activities in all three countries. Our budget, therefore, will see quite a huge deficit in all three countries. It will hover around 3% for the next upcoming 3 or 4 years.
Yes. And how would you see, for example, the slow growth for Europe as such? We have heard of this Mario Draghi's report, and is this something that can kick in very fast, or this is a very slow development, and we will see, for example, the Germany's slow down in a larger pace, maybe?
Well, during recent years, I guess the major factor for slower growth in Europe was the consumption. Europe people are basically more saving at the moment than maybe they should. That's also triggered by those uncertainties around geopolitics, etc. So we see quite low consumption in whole Europe, but recent months. However, we see that the sentiment has been improving there. The lowering of interest rates, the sentiment is getting back there, and that could give the wished boost for the economy to accelerate. On the contrary, in US we see that the personal savings are on the lowest levels in recent decades, and people basically are spending all the money that they get as an income, and that gives additional boost to the economy, definitely.
Yes, Karlis, what does Citadele Banka? When looking at the Baltic states, what do you see? Do you see like different pace for the growth for each country, or do you see like a common trend of the growth?
Yeah, definitely. There is different speed of economies in all three countries. Estonia recent years is somewhat lagging back in major economic indicators, and Lithuania is doing somewhat better than Latvia. And in Latvia we saw a bit of recession, a bit of stagnation. Estonia went into the recession, and their inflation are much higher than both in Latvia and Lithuania. Lithuania is keeping up quite well, but Lithuania is quite dependent on EU manufacturing outputs, and we can see some slowdown in upcoming periods, because we know that in Germany manufacturing sentiment is dropping, and the outputs are dropping there.
Yes.
We are very dependent on the EU economy.
I recently did a this was my private research, but still an interesting output. I asked 20 Estonians, my friends and colleagues, who I consider they are also middle class, and I asked them, "Do you feel the economic slowdown? Do you feel the stagnation and then recession and everything?" And they said, "No, actually." The life is as it goes. Of course, sometimes prices are a bit higher then and there, but we have our savings, we have our cushions, so basically we feel quite okay, and there is no like big disbalance or something like that. What would that mean? Is this something that is not really going to maybe the masses, but it's more or less impacting on the businesses, or how you would describe this little research of mine?
Well, I would say that that's basically reflecting the average income increase during recent quarters. It's been quite high. And the purchasing power in all three countries have improved significantly compared to the high inflation period when we saw two-digit inflation and smaller wage increases. However, this year the average income increase is quite substantial, and it still increases. The speed of increase or pace of average wage increase is dropping, but still it's 7, 8, and 9% depending on the country. So it's considered pretty high, actually. 7, 8% is. Yeah, it's still high. We're losing this momentum of the growth in average wage, but it's still very high. Yeah, and I guess that gives this feeling to the certain individuals that there's no actually economic crisis. Everything's fine. While my purchasing power is increasing and people are feeling good.
Yes, talking with Lithuanian economists, they on the other side, they are worried about two things. Mainly, one thing is productivity, that they say that the companies are actually not really investing into automatization and robotization. That's one worry. And the second worry is that Germany, as is their one of the largest export markets, are showing some weak signs. Would you add something to the worries of how Lithuania can and should look also at their economies?
I would say in general, those are the major worries. Also, actually, in Latvia, the productivity is on the discussion table quite often. Taking into account the planned changes in the government in Lithuania, it seems that their taxes for the personal income could be changed, and they could go the path of differentiated income tax that could somewhat kind of lower the competitiveness of the businesses in Lithuania, as the cost of employees would go up, especially for the high value-added industries.
Yes, Karlis, how would you characterize the availability of funds or money for business in the Baltic states? Do you see that we have enough influx of funds, or it can be better?
In general, I guess the availability of funds is quite okay. The major problem, at least in Latvia, is that many businesses do not have proper own capital. In many cases, the own capital is even negative, and you cannot access funding with negative capital. But those businesses are more or less effective and doing well. The access to the bank loans is quite good, and recently we see more and more enterprises trying to enter the capital markets through issuing the bonds. So the issuance of the bonds in Latvia is increasing quite rapidly. The different stories in Estonia where new issuances are very limited. So there's not very active market in Estonia in that sense.
But this is only at this point, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. My last question is about Citadele Bank. Of course, we know a lot of activities you have in your own home country, home market, Latvia, and you have very good activities also when it comes to Estonia and Lithuania, of course. But how are you doing in Lithuanian and Estonian markets? Well, can you maybe give a little bit of the insight how you feel in those two countries?
Yeah, obviously the market share in Latvia is substantially larger than both in Lithuania and Estonia. I would say we are quite small in Estonia. Recent years quite rapidly growing in Lithuania, but still there's space to conquer in terms of market share. I guess our strategy and tactics should be more focused on the development in Estonia. And I believe that recent appointment of new head of retail operations, who is from Estonia, also a bit indicates this willingness to expand in Estonia. We're doing quite good in terms of corporate lending in Lithuania, and that's been developing rapidly recently.
Where's much tougher competition? Is it as in Estonia?
I guess Estonia is quite tough because the market is I would say matured in terms of split between the market players. However, I believe there is space for new competitors and new products, and we'll try to do our best there.
Yes. And Karlis, you have been also very recently appointed chief economist in Citadele Bank. And what are your aspirations? What are your ambitions? What would you like to achieve in your post?
Well, I guess that was a bit of extension of the duties done before and continuing doing as the CEO of CBL Asset Management, where we are one of the kind of leaders in the opinion leaders regarding the investments, regarding the capital markets. And now, with the new role, I see that I can expand this role to the economic topics as well.
Yes. So I wish you all the luck and success, and thank you for your insights, and thank you for your time, Karlis.
Thank you.
We have often heard stories about cars and even planes that will one day run on hydrogen. Is this the next step after electrification, or just a decent alternative to the new paradigm? Author Tarmo Virki talks with Ivar Kruusenberg, who is a chemical doctor from Tartu University and a founder of PowerUP Energy Technologies, a company making hydrogen generators. The conversation is about the state of hydrogen economy, where the sector is standing right now in the Baltic countries.
You've been working in hydrogen industry for quite a while. Tell me how this, everybody knows water, right? Hydrogen and oxygen. How do you get the hydrogen out of this?
So basically, it sounds quite simple. You insert the electrodes, anode and cathode, to the water, and then you push through the electrodes the electricity, and this basically splits the water molecule into the hydrogen and oxygen.
Okay, and then that's the basis of the whole hydrogen economy, right?
Exactly. That's how the politicians and everyone else describes the whole hydrogen economy, the green hydrogen economy. To just take electricity, the leftovers of the electricity from the solar panels and the wind turbines, and then via electrolysis process, which I just described, to generate the fuel, which is hydrogen.
How would you describe where this economy is today? How far we are on the road?
I think we are quite far in the sense that the whole technology part has been scaling quite reasonably, I would say. This means that the prices of the technology has been dropping really significantly. We're talking here about decreases of the pricing of the technology from 30% even up to 80% over the last 3 to 5 years, and also the really big, massive projects which European Union or the US government have been subsidizing over the years. These are finally getting into the action. So we have seen, and we will see in upcoming years as well, significant change. This means that there will be more hydrogen available. There will be more electrolysis plants in action. And obviously, if we're talking about the infrastructure, this has been developing quite fast in recent years as well. Even though there has been in Germany, for example, kind of standby mode, we have heard the news about Denmark closing the hydrogen refilling stations, etc. Despite that, Poland is a good example where a couple of years ago they still transported their hydrogen vehicles on the trailer each night to Berlin to fill the tanks, and now they have 5 operational filling stations, and they are planning to open up in the range of 50 stations in upcoming year or two. So it's really finally taking off.
Yeah, I mean, from the news flow, we are seeing that there are big projects happening across Europe, but at the same time, we also see that, you know, every now and then somebody is closing down or putting their hydrogen projects on hold. I think just the other week, Finland's large oil company Neste said that they are putting their hydrogen project on hold. At the same time, in Finland, we just saw the P2X or P2BX was opening
P2X
was opening its green hydrogen project. So it seems there are, you know, clearly it's not all going in the right way, but it's kind of some kind of balance there.
But this is, I think, it's quite normal in the sense that if there is a FOMO, and then everyone goes with this flow, and obviously there's a companies who try to get advantage of either the tax reduction act or subsidies, and often then the projects which they are proposing do not make any sense. There will be refilling stations in the regions where there's no inhabitants. In the small villages in the middle of nowhere. If
there is government support, there will always be stations, the places where there are no inhabitants.
Yeah, exactly. And also from the production wise, I mean, they have been planning production where there's no massive off-takers. And obviously, then it's wise to put the whole project on hold, or you have made some assumptions which did not come to the place, which is definitely the case again for the hydrogen production plants, which have been really established to the locations where there's a lot of sun. However, the distance of the closest industry maybe is 1,000 or 2,000 kilometers, which would consume in a reasonable amount the hydrogen in the way that it would financially become viable. However, everyone who is more familiar with the hydrogen knows that one of the biggest challenges is not the production, is not the end usage of hydrogen, but is the transportation of hydrogen. And this really means that if you have a distance of 2,000 or even 1,000 kilometers, it's way too long. It adds a lot of cost on top of the hydrogen. So a production closer to the end user makes sense. And so obviously they put their project on hold because otherwise they are burning more money, so which they already have done. And yeah, I'm not surprised about it. And I think it's rather good to kind of optimize everything and drop the projects which are dead since the beginning, and leave the ones which are actually working and serving the best purpose, which is the refining of the metal. There has been obviously a lot of hydrogen production already for a long time for the refining of the fuels, and many chemical industries as well. They're already using hydrogen, and it's reasonable to produce the green hydrogen on site, and I think it's the case for Finland as well. There's many industries in Finland which would use it, even if we're talking about aviation fuel, if we're talking about some other chemicals, even production of the methanol, ethanol, methane, so on. I mean, it makes totally sense. While is for some companies, maybe their business focus is today even somewhere else. So when we hear about it, maybe it's not about hydrogen not being profitable or not reasonable, but maybe there's something else behind. We don't know.
I will fill in with a little bit of hydrogen. Meanwhile, I'll take it with oxygen together.
And I must mention, I mean, which many people do not know, oxygen may be even a better business in many locations than the hydrogen itself. So we're talking about hydrogen, but the businessmen behind that are actually selling oxygen for fortune. So you can actually go and check the price of the oxygen you're just drinking. It's it may be 200 euros or $200 a cylinder. So
oxygen futures. I mean, I think the planet will need them soon. Anyway, the PowerUP Energy Technologies. You guys make hydrogen generators. Hydrogen generators. I mean, how far is that road? Are people already using them? Where they are using them? Are they still kind of technology in development, maybe coming in the future, or is it actually happening today?
Here I would say clearly future is now. This means that the generators which we have are ready. They are certified and they are in use in the medical centers, under the telecom towers, in the hands of people working in the defense industry, etc., etc. So actually the hydrogen technology, what becomes to the usage, this means fuel cells. This technology is also, it's ready to be deployed in the large scale, and that's what we at PowerUP, we are really pushing hard today to replace the diesel generators or provide the resiliency solution to the market segments which have not had any resiliency equipment so far. I mean, if we're talking about the pharmacies and clinics, many of them located in the apartment buildings, in the shopping malls, and they have not had any diesel generators so far, but now with the outdated grid, which is related to the energy resiliency, peak times, they are forced to have some backup power solution. And that's where, I mean, fuel cells can definitely help. There's batteries, and batteries definitely super good idea. Price of the batteries also is reasonably low today. So if you need a short time, backup time, 10 minutes, half an hour, totally battery UPS system is beautiful. But when you're preparing yourself for longer outages, then the hydrogen is coming.
We talked about the region a little bit. PowerUP is based in Estonia. We talked today about some Finnish hydrogen projects. What about the Baltic countries? How would you describe the situation in the... I know that for a while the only hydrogen fueling station in Baltic countries was in Riga. I don't know if it's still operational, but is there much happening in the region?
It is operational. It's still in Riga. Nobody has been dismantling and taking it somewhere else. No. I would say in Baltic states there has been many great developments over 2 years. Last 2 years, there's a green hydrogen production plant, totally based on the renewables. In Lithuania today was even a surprise to me, but we had to fill cylinders for some of the customers with the hydrogen, and we started looking around, and then we found this manufacturer who's doing it actually in quite a big scale. Then also in Estonia, Estonian government has been investing reasonable numbers of millions of euros over the years. In total, it's planned to be invested 50 million euros to the green hydrogen production in Estonia, and the first electrolysis plant is now finally going into the action end of this year, beginning of the next one, close to Tallinn, and starts producing hydrogen for 30 taxis for the rental cars of Bolt. That's what is planned. And then also there's initiatives from the local energy companies. We're talking about Estonian energy company, Eesti Energia, and Latvia Energo the same way. And surprisingly, which many people do not know, there is also, even beyond these subsidies, activities going on. Private people, companies, they have been investing. One of our good partners, Rand Hydrogen, has been just they have been buying five trucks, and then also there's electrolysis plant going into the action, and it's already there, also in Tallinn. And there is a farmer producing close to Tallinn its own hydrogen. In Tartu, there's a hydrogen production. So there's actually quite a lot of things happening related to the hydrogen today. And I would say really hydrogen has becoming a fuel in Baltic states, which we can produce ourselves. Almost only fuel. There's a biogas, but I would say the production capacity of the hydrogen in Estonia, for example, has been raising up to the level that, I mean, it's at the same level or even more than the biogas. I would say that even the capacity which we can produce.
And for the region, it's kind of resiliency question, right?
It's definitely resiliency questions, because if we look into the Estonian and Latvian markets, we are not capable of producing any fossil fuels here. We don't have natural gas fields, we don't have oil fields. So only fuel basically we can easily produce ourselves is hydrogen. The second fuel is biogas. But obviously, if we're talking about the climate and so on, I mean, it still produces CO2. So in that sense, hydrogen, I would say, is much better fuel. It also stays in the cylinders for if it's stored It stays there for 10 years easily. So yeah, it's a resiliency question. It's a fuel we can produce ourselves. If for some reason the supply chain of the fossil fuels will be cut out, we can have the critical infrastructure really running. And that's not only about Estonia, Latvia, that's also other European countries. They have understood that hydrogen is one of the fuels they can produce by themselves. It gives them the energy security. It gives them opportunity to keep the critical infrastructure running. So without, mobile phones, we are really like handicaps today. Everything, all the life stops. We need to keep the mobile network running. We need to keep the vaccines refrigerated. We need to get the medications, insulin, etc., refrigerated. And for that, we need to have some power, and hydrogen power is definitely one of the really, really good options and examples.
Good. Let's now go back a little bit towards the infrastructure. You said that everybody who knows something about the hydrogen industry knows that the challenge is transport. How far are we in solving the transport challenge, or how it can be solved?
You're talking about the hydrogen transportation.
Yeah.
Hydrogen transportation. There's easily deployable solutions available. We can do it either by compressing hydrogen. That's one of the good options. However, there's definitely losses of some energy over there. We're talking about the 10% efficiency loss. But then there's also a possibility of turning this hydrogen into, for example, ammonia. And that's what they're doing today. They are really setting up the big ammonia plants to turn green hydrogen into ammonia. And over the long distance, it makes sense because then liquid ammonia is so much easier to transport, and then it's really easy and energy efficient to turn it back to the nitrogen, which is all over in the atmosphere. Most common element over there in the air. So, and the pure hydrogen. So if it's produced in Saudi Arabia, Oman, wherever the green hydrogen is produced, it's easy to be turned into the ammonia, transported to Europe, and turned it back. However, locally, obviously, when we're talking about the transportation from one location, manufacturing site, to the end user, in the range of 500 kilometers, 200 kilometers, compressed hydrogen makes so much sense. And there's technology available for that. Good example, 50-liter cylinders, steel cylinders, which everyone have seen in the hospitals, in the car repairman shops, everywhere else. The distribution network of these cylinders exists. You can see it all around the cities, even in the small villages. And in these cylinders, hydrogen is already available, and it's commodity good today. It has been changing over the 2-3 years significantly. Was maybe an issue 5 years ago, but now it's a commodity good in the 50-liter cylinders.
So in a way, the short distance transport is basically through disperse production. Small electrolyzers producing it locally for 30 taxis around the electrolyzer, and for the longer distance transport, the ammonia is the solution today.
Exactly, that's how it's done. So you either produce it, consume it on site. Distances, I would say up to 500 kilometers. But preferably shorter. Then you have a compressor, compressing it to a high pressure. We're talking about 300, 350, 700 bars. sometimes in between, somewhere 500 bars. And then this is either stored in the big trailers, in the really big cylinders, or these traditional 50-liter cylinders in the bundles of 16, 32, etc., etc. And then with a truck transported where the end customer is. And then, yeah, when beyond these distances, from country to country, over the ocean, this is done often as a form of money.
But if it really takes off, there is any logic of having, I don't know, electricity grid like hydrogen grids or like the natural gas pipelines? I mean, I've heard about some hydrogen pipelines, right?
I mean, this has been in discussion for a really long time. There are already lines for the hydrogen. In US, in Europe, we're talking about the Netherlands, then which are capable of transporting pure hydrogen. For the hydrogen, the biggest challenge is that the molecule is so small that it tries to sneak out from its small crack or the hole, or if there's no hole, it tries to create the hole, the one to escape. So it's hydrogen molecule is a hard prisoner, let's say it this way. And they have been industry have been trying to find a solution for that, covering the pipelines with specific polymers, creating a new type of pipes which would hold hydrogen better. And in these type of pipelines, it's possible to transport pure hydrogen. But another thing which has been going into the action and which is planned for the many countries which natural gas pipelines, they do not allow to transport the pure hydrogen, but there is a will of producing hydrogen and then transporting it from point A to point B through the pipelines, is to mix it to the natural gas or methane in the way that there's like 5% or 10%, or sometimes if the pipelines infrastructure is bad, then less, like 3% of the hydrogen. And there's two ways: either it increases the energy density of the gas, and you can burn it where you need it by having a little bit of the green hydrogen in the gas, or there's also ways to take it out again with the reformers from the natural gas. Just the concentration of the hydrogen there is higher. So there's a definitely today technology available, already plans in action for the hydrogen transportation via pipelines, but in majority still these transportation methods which we were discussing before, by either having electrolysis closer to the customer, having compressed cylinders, or turning it to the ammonia is still the in the large scale deployed, and the piping transport still in the really early phase. But you're right, this is coming as well. So yeah, I think it's a question about maybe 5 to 10 years when we will see really deployment also of the pipelines. Even Norwegians have been discussing of having underwater pipelines similar to the gas for the Nord Stream, for example, from our neighbor to Central Europe, have similar pipeline from the really big renewable energy sources like Norway have the hydro energy, the wind energy, and then they turn this one into the hydrogen and pump it to the Central Europe, where again hydrogen is needed the most.
Median Report is always interested in Baltic capital markets and their development. I want to announce that this weekend, on November the 2nd, Investor Club in Latvia is organizing the annual conference in Jūrmala. where everyone is invited to participate and follow the speakers, network with companies and also investors, and have a chance to meet experts. The same mood, but like, let's say 10 times larger in scale, the Baltic Capital Markets Conference will also take place in Latvia on November 7th. To explain more about the event and talk about the current state of Baltic capital markets, here is Robert Idelsons, the chairman of the board of Signet Bank. What can we expect from this year's Capital Markets Conference?
Yeah, I think this year Capital Market Conference will be a bit different from previous ones because this time we'll have also some issuers having breakout sessions with everybody who's interested to talk to the management, to listen to the presentations, to ask questions. So that's why this year it's there is additional angle for anybody who will attend the conference, not only to listen to policymakers and you know, see panel discussions about how to facilitate further development of the market, but also additional benefit will be presence of issuers, of bond issuers and equity issuers, and I think that some of these issuers are quite interesting for potential investors. So that's why I hope, and actually I'm convinced that the interest to attend the conference this year will be higher than it was in previous 2 years.
Yeah. If we talk topic-wise, how different this conference will be from the previous ones?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the topics are relatively the same. Obviously, life goes on. One of the important topics, of course, is the depth of the market, and when we will see the larger IPO happening in particular in Riga, but also in other Baltic exchanges. Other topics will be related to investors' sort of appetite to invest in the domestic market, and it will be both local angle and international angle, because we're going to have some international investors who are already investing in capital markets, predominantly in bonds. But also some of them are investing in equities. We will also have sessions related to new initiatives of Altum and Invega, because there's going to be a new fund being launched to invest in pre-IPO and also IPO of companies in Latvia and Lithuania. I think this is a very important step to improve liquidity of the market, and also to assist some of the local companies to become really good issuers in the coming years. So there are going to be, there definitely be some topics which are pretty common, you know, for discussion in this region. But also there are going to be some new interesting topics, and I really hope there are going to be some new interesting ideas coming out of this conference, because the set of participants is a bit different. Every year it's a bit different, and I think every year there are quite important new takeaways and new ideas what can be done for the market to develop faster.
Yes. I want also to discuss with you the differences among 3 Baltic countries, and what I have noticed, and probably you also have that in statistics, that let's take this 11 Group's IPO, the latest. What we can see that the majority of buyers are from Estonia, like 52% from if we look at Baltic numbers. Does it make or create any risks when, for example, one market is stronger or leaning towards more maybe Estonian investors, and all other 2 markets are staying undeveloped?
No, I actually would disagree with this Eleving latest IPO, because it's not 52% is a relatively low figure, because if you look into the past figures, and in terms of number of orders submitted, Estonian investors were dominant.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now we see that it's only half. Yeah, now we see that it's only half, and that basically means that Latin investors are getting much more active, and I think that the activity of Latin investors is really dependent on quality issuers being available on the local exchange. Because it's not a secret that in Estonia and in Lithuania there are more interesting companies, and I believe that is the main reason why Estonian investors are much more active, and why they're looking also into Latvia and Lithuania. But when we will have more IPOs like Eleving, I mean, in terms of size and in terms of pricing, in terms of story, I'm pretty convinced that Latin investors will be dominant investors in these local IPOs. That's, you know, it's a no-brainer for me. So that's why I think there was a huge work done in Latvia in terms of improving of financial literacy of retail investors, and also government has played a very important role in setting this topic as one of the top priorities in the governmental agenda, which also plays an important role in convincing local investors not to put all of their money into foreign capital markets, but also take a look at the local capital markets and invest part of their portfolios here.
Yes. Usually companies are looking to capital markets when they need funds, money. Now when the economy is coming out of the dark or the shadow, would you really predict that more and more companies will look in the opportunities to do IPOs or bonds?
Yeah, I think that we see a trend where every year we see new issuers doing bond placements, and old issuers are also coming back to the market and refinancing their previous issues and maybe tapping for some more funds. So that's why I think that financial literacy of companies, of entrepreneurs, is also improving, has improved actually quite a great deal over the course of the last 3 to 5 years. And I think that's that there are going to be more issuers and more interest to issue bonds. Definitely, we see quite a good pipeline here in Signet Bank, for example. In terms of equities IPO, it's more tricky, but I think that there are a number of I know that there are a number of companies in Latvia who are thinking about an IPO, and it's just a question of having the right timing and also for the company to be really prepared for this important step. Vis-a-vis economic development, I think that economy is obviously sluggish. There are no crisis and there is no huge growth. I think markets are also relatively stable, so that's why I don't really see a reason why companies would think that they need to wait for a better moment in terms of economic development or in terms of market sentiment to do an IPO. I think all of these decisions are solely dependent on internal readiness of the company to really do this step.
Mm-hmm. And looking at Signet Bank's pipeline, you can probably also see the division between IPOs and bonds. So probably bonds are more active.
Of course, yes, but it's not only with us. It's like if you look at any country, the bond market size is much bigger than the equity market size, including in US. So that's why it's quite natural, and I think that also an important point here is that a lot is being discussed about availability of lending from local banks. I think last 2 years we had a very heated discussion sometimes that the banks are not lending enough and there is a lending gap in the economy and etc. But I think that to a large extent this gap is being actually filled by these bond placements. Because if you look at the size of the bond placements over the course of the last 4 years, it was more than 500 million euros. And that is pretty sizable number for a country like Latvia. So that's why I think also from the perspective of availability of financing, this is an important element for local market. Bond placements, and it sometimes it's being overlooked when we have these heated discussions about unavailability of resources for local entrepreneurs.
Yes. My last question is a little bit of off topic, but still a very interesting. If we look pan-Baltic, few months ago, or it was a month ago, Signet Bank also signed a letter to the government of Latvia about the this solidarity fee that all banks should pay, and you at that point you wrote that that smaller banks can actually at one point go bankrupt if the there is this letter that is accepted starting from the next year. But how do you, is there any progress made in that address?
Yeah, we were not really saying that the smaller banks will go bankrupt. We were saying that the smaller banks will have less possibilities to compete with larger banks, because one of the topics which is also being discussed in Latvia is that there is lack of competition between the banks, and obviously we have a relatively large number of banks, but most of the market is concentrated with top four. So that's why I think I fully agree with the government and central bank's priority to improve competition in the local market, but that can be achieved only through growth of the local players, because I honestly don't believe that there are going to be any large international player coming to the small market of Latvia and starting to compete with existing four largest players. So that's why obviously this idea of this solidarity contribution would hurt competition in a way that it would reduce capital which is available for smaller banks to grow. And that was the reason why we made these thoughts public. And I can say that government and central bank have really heard us, and we received a certain support in a way that in the current legislation, which hopefully will be approved by the parliament, there is a rebate which can go up to 100% of this new tax, which is this rebate will be available for those banks which grow their loan portfolio to a certain extent. And I think that smaller banks definitely, we all grow our loan portfolios, and we will hopefully fulfill these targets which are set by the government in this new law. And that's why I think that this piece of legislation will not hurt competition, but even maybe it will improve competitive situation, because for banks who do more lending and who keep all the profits in the capital, which is again facilitating new lending. So for those banks, the situation will be better than for largest banks.
Yes, thank you, Robert, for your insights and contribution and time. Thank you.
Thank you as always.
I hope this Median report fulfilled all your expectations. You can follow us on YouTube, channel Median Report, and I invite you there to expand the discussion about topics covered in this show and previous ones. I see you again next week. Happy Halloween and good luck.